Hi, and welcome to another episode of ecom at One. And today's guest is Simon Akers, the founder of Archmon, growth marketing consultancy, a mental health champion and friend and partner of the guys and team here at ecom at One. How are you doing, Simon?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm honoured to be invited back onto your podcast, having seen such illustrious guests.
So we're on episode 51, and Simon was actually one of our first guests way back when this was just a bit of an idea and a bit of
by unpopular demand.
Exactly. Well, no, popular demand, of course. So I think, we managed to squeeze in your recording pre-lockdown, although we did launch post-lockdown. So it was over a year ago when we last spoke. Obviously, we spoke all things sort of marketing.
Isn't it weird? It's like this last year has gone so quick in many ways. It doesn't seem like 2 minutes since we were sat in that room, but the last year that has just been crazy. It's mind-bending for so many people.
It is crazy, isn't it? A whole year has passed since we were sat in our office. We actually, myself and Simon, our companies are both based in the same sort of digital workspace in the middle of Lincoln. And I think since that day, we've probably seen each other about 4 times, maybe.
Yeah. Plenty of times on Zoom, I tell you that.
Yes, this is another Zoom. So let's get into it. Obviously, a whole year has passed. We've had a year of lockdown almost, on and off, but mainly lockdown. How would you say the last year has impacted your business, your mental health, and those around you?
Now, there's a question. I think looking back to March last year, just shortly after we recorded our episode, things were going really well at that point. Start of the year, very optimistic about the year ahead. It was my first full year. It was going into my first full year of trading. So, because I set up in Archmon in 2019, and I believed that going into 2020 it was going to be my year. It's going to be our year, right? It was all of our years. And I think overnight things just dropped off for me completely, because a lot of my work was based around consultancy, on-site support, strategy, planning, that kind of thing. And overnight it was very clear, despite my best efforts and the work I do, they had to prioritize. And there was a little bit of kind of a Darwinian mode going into a lot of businesses, and they furloughed their staff. So if we're furloughing our own staff, we can't exactly justify paying some consultant to come in and do some slides for us. So, so basically, there was a little bit of a humbling awakening for me. But I think on the business level, my sort of summary of the last year, and I actually said this morning on a call, that business went down, but it's definitely picked up, because I think you get to this sort of point in May, June, a couple of months in, where things are bad, and you think, right, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to work? Bit of self-doubt on my own. Either that, or you just think, I just need to get on with it. I put all this work in. Why would I throw this away now? So I kind of changed my attitude, and I changed my approach to my clients. And I said, look, I'm there to support you in a remote basis. We can do hour-long clinics. We can do virtual training sessions, this kind of thing. And send me some stuff, and I'll do some remote, cred debt, collateral management, that kind of thing. And it just built from there. And luckily now, I'm actually about to close my best month since November 2019, I think. So, in terms of business, I'm happy with the way things are, especially in 2021 so far.
Yeah.
But that's not without pain. And I think a lot of it, well, I don't know if it's fake optimism or feigned optimism, but I'm guessing, I don't know about how you're finding it, Richard, at ecom One, but I'm finding that people are a lot more open to, let's just get on with things now. We're sick of this. That's the ethos I'm getting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Especially this last sort of, I think since Christmas, really. January seems to be a real. I mean, it always is quite a busy time in digital, isn't it? January, people are making decisions, but it's just like the whole dial's been turned up with this optimism about things opening back up, and not just physically stores and things.
You're right on the optimism front, and on the mental health thing as well. I kind of got the opposite. I think my business was down and it's gone up. But I feel like the mental health thing's been a bit of a paradox, because at first I was kind of we're all in it together. There was a kind of a level of empathy and kindness, and people were supporting each other. There was less expectancy. But I think as time's gone on, I sense people's mental health has suffered a bit more, and there's been less tolerance and a bit more irritation, and people huffing and puffing when you're, walking around Sainsbury's. And I'm just sensing a general kind of apathy. But hopefully we can all maintain a little bit of camaraderie just for a few more months. We've come so far, and hopefully as long as everyone plays by the rules, we'll be back in a normal.
I think so many people listening will relate completely, to that sort of, okay, excuse my French, but shit, what is going on? It's March, April, May last year. It's like, whoa. And a lot of businesses, consultancies and e-com stores, depending on what they're selling, will have fallen off. Obviously, there's the complete opposite in the same respect, in terms of certain industries are flying. But, I think just pushing through, like you're saying, that those times where it's like, what the hell? I've just got to get on with it. Just got to get on with it. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh, a little bit brash, even from me saying it out loud, but it's like, that is the reality, isn't it? It's like,
you kind of wake
temporary.
up. Yeah, it's your own energy and mental health. It depends what your purpose is in life, I guess, and whether you self-actualize yourself as someone who is active, or as an entrepreneur, or is self-employed, or whatever it is you're doing. You're running a business, you're working for someone. Your purpose is kind of what drives you and what gets you out of bed every day. And if you, for whatever reason, decide that, things are going to beat you, they do beat you. And I'm not, I'm in no way a positive thinking guru at all. I'm probably the opposite. But what I will say for myself is that I got sick of my own self-talk. I kind of got sick of my own almost pity, almost the whole, oh, this isn't going well for me, poor me, just the only person who's going to sort this out is me. I'm the CEO of my own life and my own company.
Yeah.
I need to work out what it is I'm going to do. And the way I'm going to do is to do my courses, relax more, so I'm more focused on the work I do. Keep positive, read books. We'll come to that, I'm sure. We love talking about books, don't we? And just get to a point where actually, rather than treat me as I'm my own victim, treat me as my own care package to look after.
That's a great takeaway right there, isn't it? It's that putting that work in for yourself, let alone your business, but just like the things that you're consuming. Whether it's turning off the news and reading the right book or two, or being very, very selective of the people maybe that you're spending time with, or the media you're consuming, or what you're learning who you're learning from, and just what you're consuming, because it can soon, as
diet, the human diet, the literacy diet, the business diet, people who be, especially because we're in this virtual world, and we lose that element of, the vibe you get when you're in an office or in a meeting and you can connect with people and you have a beer at a pub and there's that kind of chemistry and we can all enjoy. We're all lacking that. And I think we're all missing that more than our bodies realize. And I think your energy is a lot more sensitive to smaller changes. So if you're having a bad day, it's hard to get lifted, or, if you're speaking to the wrong people, they're going to drain your energy, which is why it's more important than ever, like you say, Richard, to have that consumption diet and have consume the right content, the right partnerships, the right business, the right clients.
Yeah, I think we had like as I said at the beginning, we sort of have spaces in the same office building, don't we, in the middle of Lincoln, and we actually met up on a business level last week. Was it last week? Week before? Last week, I think it was, wasn't it?
And it was a business level for those.
Exactly. I'm just getting that in there. Yeah. We do have offices in the same building, and we have and just coming into the building and working from the building and seeing the buzz around the building, even though obviously still most people aren't back.
Did you feel that when you came in?
I felt that. I had that day I came, we didn't actually spend that much time together for obvious reasons. We're distancing and whatnot. And obviously we were both...
We shouted across the room at each other for half an hour, didn't we?
Yeah, you were about 20 yards away. But we did have we had a chat. And then I had a day in the office, which is my first day in the office, my first full day in the office I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. I popped in, checked on things and fetched things and whatnot, and just had a bit of a stretch of the legs and go to the office for the hour or whatever. But that was my first full day. And the difference that made, just spending a bit of time with you, spending a bit of time with others that were, obviously there was probably about 8-9 people in the building, which we
didn't get our jalapeno chicken fries though from Burger King, which is always a win. But I look forward to that when.
But we did make up for it, I think, didn't we, from memory?
We did. Oh, believe it did. Yeah, ask Mr. Domino. He'll tell us.
Okay, so let's move through. So last time when we chatted, and obviously chatting to you as we do quite regularly, brand versus performance marketing. You know, these are two sort of
Yes.
two big topics, two things, that we spend our lives involved in and with. What's changed? What would you say has changed in the last 12 months, or during the lockdown, during the sort of pandemic, or what has changed in general between brand versus performance? What's your take on that at the moment?
I mean, this is a huge subject that requires a separate 45 minutes alone. But the whistle stop tour of where I am mentally with that is the last year has refocused client budgets, right, in terms of what they're looking to do, what their priorities are, and they're having to sort of always go a bit back to basics, start with what their proposition is and work it through to their comms, their messaging, and their ultimate activation and execution of the message. So, in terms of marketing, which is in essence, the positioning of your product or service to the market, and then the subsequent promotion and advertising of it, that is always going to be a fundamental truth, regardless of whether we're in, Shakespearean times or, some dystopian future where we're all, in offices having Burger Kings. I mean, this is the same throughout. Can you imagine, right? But going back to the main question, there's this dichotomy of, brand and performance. Brand marketing is kind of your big creative messaging. It could be a TV advert, cinema, out of home, print, radio. And performance marketing is kind of like the discipline of getting transactions over the line, right? So typically that could be paid search, paid social, shopping ads, affiliates, native, biddable, programmatic, that kind of thing. So there's very much, over time, there has been this development of this dichotomy between brand and performance and the disciplines that go with it. I think this last year, there's been more of a focus towards performance and short-termism and ROI, which has driven more of a performance focus. Yeah. But also in an industry and technical level, there's going to be changes around the third-party cookie, the activity of Chrome, the iOS 14 and App Store relationship with Facebook. There's a number of things which means that identity is going to be changing. So I reckon some of the performance budgets will probably be going into more brand budgets, contextual budgets, more sort of audience contextual, because there needs to be more brand building activity, because there's going to be less of an addressable audience potentially. I'm interested to see how this evolves, and I'm sure you'll have firsthand experience of this with your clients. But look, there's a digital agency, there's a media agency, there's a creative agency. The industry has almost manifested the problem in itself in the division. I think by us all working together, say, for example, if I needed a client who does e-commerce stuff and paid search, obviously I speak to 𝐞𝐲𝐞𝐬 and they can help. But, if you've got a client who maybe needs some stuff that's wider advertising outside of what you do, then, I can help. And I think ultimately it comes down to the client, and they all have different locks that we need to unpick. And I think it just depends ultimately on the budget, the KPI.
So if a company had a limited budget, so let's say, 𝐸COM1's listeners varying from, doing startup e-com store to, maybe even 100 million a month. I think we've got a few guys like that. But let's say, you've got a limited budget. What's the budget? It's limited. It's a small budget. It has to work. It has to work.
Said every single person in the last 12 months.
Said every conversation I've had over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a common question, right? And I'd be lying if I said you were the first to ask that. And the most boring, irritating answer is it really does depend. I mean, if, for example, it was a B2B. If it was a B2B project or a small event or a charity that you're advertising, you might want to pay for areas where you'll have authority. So you might do, for example, some content sharing through SEO, or you might do sponsor an event where there's a lot of viewers and speakers.
Yeah, or be a guest on a podcast like this.
Be a guest on a podcast like 𝐸COM1. But or maybe if they want to grow via newsletter or aggressive acquisition or signups, then of course using things like Facebook and sort of biddable performance channels will serve a purpose. But again, it depends on what your capacity is for. And I use the analogy of, you've got the bath and you've got the tap, right? There's only so much water you can put in the bath. So I was doing quite a lot of stuff at the start of the year, a lot of sort of branding, doing a lot of, I could release my book. I've been on some panels. And, a lot of work is, quite a bit of work is coming off the back of that, which is fantastic. But sometimes it's time to loosen the tap, just tighten it a little bit.
Yeah.
Let it drip whilst you have your bath, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I think just time to turn it on and off. So again, I think it depends on where you are in your journey, whether you have the capacity to take the business on, and if your KPI is newsletter signups, use Facebook. If your KPI is to grow the brand awareness and be associated with the right people, like almost like dating by partnerships, use those sort of forums and events and stuff like that. So again, it really does depend, doesn't it?
Obviously, it's a little bit of a tricky question. I know we do that on purpose. So we've got that brand, we've got performance. But let's say we're going down the performance channel, and you've got to choose one, or channels, and you've got to choose one channel in performance. What were your thoughts on that? Or what are you seeing? I know it's a similar response.
No, this is great. This is really good. I mean, obviously, if there was an easy answer to all these questions, there would be no need for a podcast, and no one would need to work with people like us ever, would they? But again, it depends, I think, on the brand journey and the category. So if I had fame already, right, say I was a famous brand, I would probably bid on, say, maybe some brand terms and some generic terms. So because I know that people would search for my brand on Google. So they would find it and they would hopefully click and convert to sale. Now, if I'm in a familiar category and no one knows my brand, it might be a case of,
which is probably more the case. So
it could be, golf products, safes, kitchens, whatever, right? You might want to be using sort of generic terms and content and using that to sort of pivot to that. So like SEO, you might use Amazon if you're selling a certain product, because Amazon is good for linking the category to the buyer. So you can come up in the results with better known products. So say you're competing with Morphy Richards, and you're a new kettle brand called Hills Kettles, go on Amazon. Let's bid against the Morphy Richards. And also
heard it here first.
Exactly. And shopping ads as well, shopping ads. Now, if you are, for example, creating a new category, so a subscription business of, I don't know what, kitchen towel. There you go. That's an exciting one. Cleaning up here, right? Sorry. Sorry. So say you're doing a career like iMop.
I need a little drum sound effect now.
Please delete or add accordingly. But no, you might want to do a bit of content, a bit more brand building on that. So you might find that actually Google is probably not the best thing, and maybe a Facebook reach and frequency buy to raise awareness might be something good. So again, I think the e-commerce tool you use has to be based on whether you're familiar in the category, you're starting a category, or you're a known brand.
Great. I think that's great. Some great ideas there. I think that should give everybody something to think about, obviously, depending on where they are with their brand and on their journey. So
I always say it's a line in the sand, right? So like, say if I was speaking to a client today, the advice that I would support them with and the planning I would give them, I want it to be out of date in a year, because that means that the journey you've gone on has evolved to a point where you can turn that tap off or turn that hot or cold tap on, whatever.
Yeah. So obviously working with a lot of brands and working on a lot of different campaigns. Tell us about a campaign maybe that you're working on at the moment, or a brand that you're working with at the moment that you're really passionate about.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a few. I mean, I'm working with a couple of really cool brands. I'm working with a mental health publisher at the moment. So they're building a hub, and it's about to launch next week. So I can't reveal too much, but we're just doing a soft launch now, and it's going to be a go-to. And the CEO's got a vision. He wants it to be almost like Amazon for mental health. We're going to have mental health books, as they've got their own published books, and they're going to have a lot of extra SKUs on there. But over time, they want to build out apps for the products and resources. So, you can go there, and if people aren't necessarily open about talking about their mental health, which they aren't, they've got products from an introverted stand that can support them. So, the power of reading is so important. I mean, look at the bookshelf behind you. It's so important. And I think that is always a fundamental truth. And I've got so much out of reading, and I love that they're doing that. And I feel like I'm using my experience to serve a purpose which actually helps people. It's not just, shifting product. And I love all of it. And anything, clients that pay bills are good, to be honest, but it's really good when you have that. But in terms of wider campaigns, not just stuff I do. I mean, there's a couple of stand out in particular elsewhere. And it's the ones that really do, they're not vapid, and they're not fake, they're real. So remember KFC last year, they messed up, right? They ballsed up their supply
Chicken
chain.
delivery, yeah.
Yeah, and they changed it because the strength of their brand, everyone knows what KFC and the word right in the font. They changed it to FCK. Everyone knows what that means. It was beautiful because they had the brand, they owned their supply chain, Gaff, and it was brilliant. It was really effective, and it was great PR. Yeah. And they owned that. And obviously, from a mental health perspective, I love the Calm advert when I used to work and walk past it in London.
Yeah.
On the South Bank ITV Tower, they had 84, the 84 men, because that's how many people,
it is a great
take
product,
their lives
yeah.
On a daily or weekly basis. I can't quite recall now, but it was a terrible statistic. And they had cutouts of men, and it stood round the top of the building, and that resonated because that was like that was a real punch in the gut, that was. And the ones that you remember are the ones that get hit you, whether it's like fair play, you're being honest, or fair play, that's serious.
You resonate, or they get a response from inside, emotive, emotional. Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually seen that. I actually have the app. It's a fantastic product, the Calm app, or the Calm, what's an app, isn't it, with all different things on there. But I hadn't actually seen that one. But what we will do, we'll make sure that we link up to your mental health project that you're working on. Obviously, that will be updated or released or launched in a week or so. So we'll update the podcast notes. So the guys that are listening, look at the podcast notes. By the time you're listening to this, we'll hook that up. And obviously, there'll be a lot of resources there on mental health. As you say, books, resources, community, etc., as it, keep an eye on that as that develops. So that we'll link all that up in the show notes.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it's just the whole, because there's two. There's Calm the app, isn't there? And then there's Calm Campaign Against Living Miserably, and that was like the men's charity,
right?
And they weren't massively known at this point. And the CEO, Simon Akers, I met him. He's a really interesting guy. This campaign, they got so much word of mouth, and I think this is the thing as well, about good marketing gets shared. So actually it's the relative media cost. So if you do a really good piece of content, like a really good bit of out-of-home advertising, good bit of out-of-home, buy one poster, have it up for one day on one street, just get a photographer to take a couple of pictures of it, get that on social, and you've basically it's price signaling. You're signaling you got a lot of fame and brand power.
Yeah.
And it's a great conversation piece. It's evocative. And I think that's what Calm did so well. They really amplified their message through something really powerful and visual.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. So performance marketing, let's get the crystal ball. Let's get that crystal ball out for a moment. Give me maybe some insight, and give the listener some insight on what you think some future trends to look out for, and things that will become more mainstream in performance marketing over the next year or three.
Okay. Well, I kind of touched on it earlier on, and that's there's this division, this brand v performance, and there's channels that do brand and channels that do performance. And I can't help but thinking that that's going to become, I think we need to take a more agnostic approach. I think there's going to be more overlap. There's going to be more understanding of how different channels drive different things through improved marketing technology, dashboards, econometrics, that kind of thing. And I'm seeing, for example, the growth of connected TV is going to be interesting. So rather than just buying on YouTube, you can buy on VOD, connected TV, on the media houses. So rather they were traditionally selling cost per thousand ads to audiences in the middle of Love Island, you can now buy adverts to address a particular audience, and it's underpinned by the DSPs that power like programmatic and display advertising on the GDN. So this is a really interesting move. Digital out of home as well is very interesting because they're using data points. So when the sun comes out, you serve an advert for a barbecue, and they use data points. So what I'm saying is you can use performance data and performance conversion data to inform the brand and to inform the targeting. So I call it bottom-up planning. But there's also the element of actually the traditional stuff driving sales. So, the growth of podcasts and the increased listenership has, I'm not just saying it because I'm on here, I'm saying it because, people do sponsored content. So this is sponsored by Squarespace. Go on Squarespace/Richard Hill for your free trial, whatever. And, there's a lot of so-called traditional channels working harder, which are driving performance. So when I look at the future of performance, bringing it back to the question, I'm looking at a question about, right, what drives business outcomes?
Yeah.
What drives business outcomes isn't an arbitrary channel or choice. It's a campaign and a focus that is performance marketing.
Yeah.
So, you know, all these tools at our disposal. You've got performance, people using brand using performance.
Yeah.
It can all do all of it if you use it correctly.
Fantastic.
To a degree.
Fantastic. Okay, so in our last episode, way back when, pre-lockdown, 53 weeks ago, 54 weeks ago, it was actually a year ago today, wasn't it? The official lockdown, 23rd, and we're on the 24th today. We shouldn't say that actually out loud.
I couldn't tell you what day it is. Is it? Yeah, it's the 24th. Yeah.
It was actually a year and a week ago actually that that we left the offices. But yeah. So we talked in that episode very much about imposter syndrome and sort of mental health and imposter syndrome. Have you found any new sort of techniques to overcome this? And if so, what are they?
I'm gonna not challenge your question. I'm gonna reframe that paradigm, because this time last year I wrote a couple of articles on it, and it was very important for me to sort of normalize that actually people have imposter syndrome, and it's okay to feel like you're not quite, I don't know, matching up, or you feel like you're playing a part. And when your mental health's not there as well as it should be, it's easy to think that you're not aligned with the person who's coming across, and you feel like you're kind of like faking it till you make it, that kind of thing, right? Now, I talked about the techniques last year. For example, know that everyone else goes through it, so it's a leveler, that sort of thing. But what I want to sort of take on now is more about addressing the fundamental issue as to why it's an issue in business, right? We should be rewriting the norm of what is acceptable. I think it's okay to say, oh, sorry, I'm shitting myself, excuse my language, for this coming meeting. I think we should all normalize being scared, feeling like we're, not feeling up to something. That doesn't mean you're an imposter or have imposter syndrome, because the word imposter infers that there is a standard, an identikit that one should be. Now, I challenge that convention. I challenge the idea that, there is nothing to imposter. Why would I want to copy someone? You can only be you. So the best thing to do is map the best versions of you to the job you've got to do. And there is no imposters. See what I mean?
I do see what you mean. I see exactly what you mean. It is okay to some days be not feeling great, and that's just it. That's just how it is, sort of thing. And those days, you don't have to worry too much about that thing, or you shouldn't be worrying too much about that thing, and just getting used to being yourself and getting used to, or accepting, even be more accepting of the times when you might just feel a little bit more down or down.
I had a terrible day yesterday. I went into our office actually, and the community manager, he made a quip about, all right, part-time or whatever, which is obviously, as you know, ironic coming from him. But the interesting thing, Ben, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But what I would say is I had a really bad day. I was up early. I didn't sleep well, had some stressful stuff going on. I'm looking at houses in my personal life, which is a whole other brain clutter, for the want of a better phrase. And and I was just burnt out. And I said at 3, I just downed tools at 3 o'clock, got the train home. And I called it off, put it as a bad day. And I thought, I'll do that client work tomorrow morning. I got up early this morning, had a really good start to the day, and I'm okay. And, spreadsheets are consistent. Campaigns are consistent. Dashboards don't have emotions. Us humans do, right? So own the fact that you're up and down. And then you'll be fine.
I just love the fact that, it's like you just never know what other people have got going on. So that little remark, and we know the good chap we're talking about, he's the nicest chap ever, but it's like those little remarks, you don't know what other people have got going on. And even when you like yourself there and me, when I'm having a bad day, I think just recognizing, and I shouldn't even say bad day, it's not a bad day, it's just life, isn't it? Sometimes it's like the roller coaster, and like, in fairness
to Ben, he owed me that comment, because I said that to him once. I'm cool with it, but I know exactly what you mean. Like, if I was in a bad place, I'd be like, Ben, shut up.
and to go, do you know what? To recognize it and go, do you know what? Excuse my French, fuck it. I'm going to call it a day, and I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to down tools. I'm going to step away. I'm going to go and do in your case, jump on the train, go home and do whatever it is. That's okay. If, obviously depending on what if you're, depending on where you are work-wise, it's a little bit more challenging, but at the same time, step away, go for a walk, have a little refresh.
Because my two worlds are acquisition marketing and mental health. I cross the worlds over a lot, and it's quite nasty of me, but I always think about paid search and diminishing returns. There's only so much. You can only get a good CPA or ROAS for a while on a small audience because it works, because you have to grow and you have to do whatever and remarket. There's only a final thing. I think we have diminishing returns. We get our peak performance, but I can't keep up my level of thinking or my, whatever your own level is of energy and thinking and work all day. You can't do it. I mean, I get to 6:30 and or even earlier sometimes, even in the afternoon, I'm like, I can't think. I'm not the man I was this morning.
Yeah. So sometimes you just got to turn the ads off, have a reset,
turn the ads, restart the computer, fire up again,
reboot,
set the budget to 0,
pause them over the weekend.
And that's important. The pausing, the pausing for all of us. I think I read somewhere the other day, we've gone from working from home to living at work. So it's extra important now to try and create that divide between home and work. I don't know, how have you found it? Because it's hard to just sort of...
It's been terrible trying to get that divide, trying to get that split and differentiate, because you wake up and you're at work. What I've done, I think this last month or so, just over a month now, I've been really getting obsessed with walking, which has really helped. So that morning, like that commute in the morning, which I think we talked about in the past, getting up in the morning and rather than straight working and then just working through, I have to admit, I wake up in the morning, I do a little bit of work, for about an hour. This has been my routine for about 6 weeks now. I wake up and I do work, I do an hour, and then I go out for at least an hour to 2 hours. And that's been a real shift for me, to give me that split and to try and split my days up more. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing I'm not doing the 10, 14 hour day. I'm definitely trying to keep it and retain it.
I remember in January, I had a really bad week, and I realized it was because for about 2 or 3 days in a row, I just got up, got in the shower and slept to my laptop. And that was it. That was my existence.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I started making, because I used to get the train into Lincoln for work. And I started making my little flask of coffee and going on a fake commute and just walking around by the river. And, it's good. It's good to do that because you feel revitalized. I did it this morning and like 6, 7 a.m., which is early.
It's pretty early still, isn't it? What are we on, about 11:30 in the morning? And I've done 11,200 steps. So I'm ready for sleep.
Really, absolutely.
Okay, some great things there. Fantastic. So, obviously you have worked in a lot of agencies. You've worked on a lot of campaigns. You've been interviewed for this, that, and the other. I noticed that you're speaking at the AdWorld coming up in May.
I am, yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to listening to that one.
I got a few comp tickets maybe going. I might be able to slip them your way if you.
They seem to have forgot my invite on the speakers list this year for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, depending on how your final edit is, I'll send you a code maybe.
So if we could step back 10 years, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell your younger self? What would be one bit of advice you give yourself?
That's a good question. I'd probably, a couple of things actually. Given my experiences that I had maybe, 2 or 3 years ago, I'd probably say don't chase the job title and money so much. Like don't chase the notion of career success. Like be curious, always be curious and be open to learning. And I mean, I'm better now. I mean, I always do courses and online stuff. And I really enjoy it. But
you are relentless with the course.
I am. I love the self-improvement thing. I don't know. I'm a bit of a junkie for it now, but I just believe that lifelong learning, you're never too old or experienced, long in the tooth to learn. And I think that's an important thing. Yeah. But no, be curious, just enjoy the process and the journey. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to not make mistakes. You're going to have successes. You're going to have disappointments. Yeah. And, embrace that journey and learn it, and it adds tools to your kit. But, most importantly, enjoy the education and the learning that you get from it and soak it all up like a sponge. And because one day it'll come in use and, it can be used sooner rather than later. It's taken me a while to get used to it, but no, I generally you can use these things quicker. But no, I was like, I was obsessed with sometimes younger, probably more status-driven stuff and things like that. And I think LinkedIn hustle culture and the sort of the career drivel that I read, it does set a precedent of over celebrating certain elements of ambition and career progression and stuff. And it's all good stuff, but don't let that be your North Star, because that stuff can be taken away. And what you've always got, you can't unlearn, you can't get demoted from education. You can't get made redundant from, a certification. So always look after yourself, I'd say. That would be my wish to my younger self, and anyone listening, I guess, who's younger than me, which is probably most people in media now.
Brilliant. That is brilliant advice. I think, you can, there's so much out there to learn, isn't it? It is so easy to get access to resources. I think if those that are listening, you should definitely follow Simon on all social channels. But I know even this morning, I think it was, or yesterday, you posted your most recent sort of course and sort of mini MBA that you got yesterday.
Probably. I can't remember. But no. But the other thing as well, like, also when learning, don't be afraid to get a mentor. There's no harm in that. Like when you're younger, like, who do you admire? What man or woman, or leader or client or whoever inspires you to be the person you want to be. Talk to them. And there's a big thing around this at the moment. No one should ever have to pay for mentoring and that sort of thing. It should be something that it should be available. And I had people who supported me, and I'm lucky. And I've actually got a couple of mentees now. I work with Tipstart, which is this brilliant. It's to help nepotism and people from social economically deprived backgrounds to get jobs in consultancy, etc. I'm also working with Brixton Finishing School, who do some really good stuff with people from inner city backgrounds who don't always have the same Oxbridge background that bequeaths the Soho Illuminati of agencies. And being a someone from the East Midlands who got a 2-2 and did it right for himself, I want to champion these kids. Desmond. So like I'm all for it, and I'm believing sort of trying to not give back. That sounds awful, but just basically just know that. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. And like, if you find someone who you think's been down the same path as you, or you want to go on, reach out to them, send them an email. And most people are really open to supporting. So, I definitely say get a mentor, definitely.
Yeah, fantastic. So every episode, we always go there, the books. We obviously have a lot of chat about books. And since the last sort of 53 weeks since we last had you on the pod, I know you released your own Back to Basics, 21 Ways to Increase Marketing Performance and Success. Tell us about the book.
Right. I wanted to being a performance marketer, I was keen to do a landing page with an ebook. Okay. So it was all about generating leads. You download the content in exchange for the details, and then I can follow up, the usual, right? Yeah. And I thought, well, I'll do like a 5-point basic plan about performance, like have a good message, have good creative, make sure the call to action clear, the website needs to work, and don't be crap at customer service. It was like the standard 5 rules of, marketing life. Then it kind of evolved and it got really big. It's like, when you start a jigsaw puzzle and it's like you started it and you need to finish it, or you're moving house and you're halfway in and you can't finish. It became this unwieldy project. And I ended up writing like 30,000 words. And I realized, because my USP, my client, my business is I do planning and strategy, and I work with partners who bring it to life. I thought, what better way to amplify my business than to tap into some experts in said areas, like, I don't know, Google Shopping, for example. Richard, and people all over the world who've helped me, some brilliant people. And I thought, well, I'll come up with my sort of thoughts and break it into 3, which is kind of, the basics of what to get right first before you start advertising. Because there's a lot of marketing. There's not just advertising. I get the marketing right, position, product, brand, etc. Then you advertise, there's your channels. And then it's kind of like measurement, analysis. What does it mean, right? And what I did, I wrote out a lot of the stuff. And to validate the truths, I had a lot of my partners who are brilliant and much better than I am at what they do, so to actually validate and comment. And it was shared. I wrote it, and I thought I just wanted to kind of do something as well for free as well. I gave to a mental health charity that I'm a champion of as well. Yeah. And for me, I just wanted it to be just something that people could use. And now it's actually being used in curriculum on courses, and I shared it with Brixton Finishing School, Lincoln University, and I'm really sort of proud of that. And it's being quoted at me and back at me, and
that's fantastic.
Wow, like it's really nice to see. But I wasn't even doing it for that. I just did it to sort of get, because things were frustrating me, and I wanted to just prove that regardless of the fluctuating ideas of brand v performance and COVID and non-COVID, there are fulcrums of truth that are constant throughout, right? So, and that's come across, and I've had people who back up. So it came around, and that was
a real labor of love over lockdown then.
It was a labor of love and hate. Yeah. I mean, I remember I was writing, because I started writing on the 20, I put my tool, I down tools for Christmas. And then I opened up my laptop on the 28th because, I was done with, I don't know.
Turkey sandwiches,
Pringles, and Borsan. We'd probably run out of Borsan by then, because let's be honest, the Borsan is the one to go first. But I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing, and I really got into it. And then in the end, it became a bit of a session. Then I designed it, shared it, and thanks for bringing that up. But it was for me, it was an important thing to share for both my mindset and for others.
So for those listening, what's the best place to download? Where's the best place to download that?
Well, you go to you can Google. I think you can Google Backbase. I'm not sure, but I can actually share a link with you, and you can share it in the podcast notes. But there is archmon.com/archmon blog/back to basics. It's it's actually quite an unpleasant link to mention, actually.
But archmon.com, they'll find it on there.
Yeah, that's right.
Somewhere. Fantastic. So staying on books for a minute then, we always like to finish every episode with a book recommendation, apart from Back to Basics. What would you recommend to our listeners this time around?
Well, I spent last year reading, I did a Goodreads, I got into Goodreads, so I set up a target of like 18 books, and I read about 21, which I was really proud of. But what I did last year, which I think was different to any other year, was read a lot more fiction. And I've got this thing now. I've read a lot of non-fiction books. I really enjoyed Chris Voss, by the way. Was it Never Split the Difference? Great book on negotiation. And Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way, about Stoic philosophers and how you can amend, and the whole idea of you're still sailing in the same direction, but you adjust your sails based on the winds. And I love that notion of being adaptable, and we've all had to do that. So from a non-fiction and psychology perspective, Chris Voss and Ryan Holiday have been great. But going back to my point, fiction has been a huge part of my life in the last year. And I would argue that more people in business and marketing should read more fiction, because it helps you really craft storytelling. So I really got into Ernest Hemingway, right? Now, Hemingway, interestingly, was a copywriter, an ad copywriter, who ended up being an author. So I thought this was interesting straight away. And what he does, he's obsessed with the power of what you don't say. So I picked up from a charity shop this book called The Snows of 𝐞𝐲𝐞𝐬, and it's basically like a load of short stories from Hemingway. And he does a few of these, and I think A Farewell to Arms is short. Old Man and the Sea I read in like a weekend. They're very short stories, but what he does, he tells the story without using all the words. So it's almost like what he doesn't say. And I think there's a certain magic to that. And I think there's something that we could all apply to our own, do you know what I mean? Our own thinking and business and advertising. So I'm really into Hemingway. So ad copywriter becomes fiction writer. I'm a fiction reader now.
Right. Well, we'll have to link up some of the Hemingway, and we'll get those ordered.
Do it.
Well, Simon, second time round, it's been even more of a blast. So I think we'll have to this might even become a yearly thing. So episode 51 this time around. It might be episode 100.
Area 51. Okay, cool. Yeah, episode 101, please. 101. That would be good. 101.
Yeah. We'll see you in a year. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on again.
So one final thing, if the guys do want to reach out to you, archmon.com, find you on LinkedIn. Anything else you would like to
absolutely. Follow Archmon on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Simon Akers. I use Twitter less now. Archmon.com. You can go on the blog and follow the blog. You can subscribe to our newsletter, or ping me a note at simon@archmon.com if you want me to share any resources or the link to the book with you.
Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Bye.